Okay, if we're ready to call the Public Transportation Advisory Committee meeting to order. It is being recorded, both audio and video. And do we take roll first? Okay. Will you do that?
I can do that.
Okay.
Pioneer Center.
Here.
Senior Career Volunteer Network is there.
Here.
Steve McHenry. McHenry County College. McHenry County Continuum to Care of End of Homelessness, Virginia. McHenry County Council of Mayors.
Yeah, I can stand in for the Council of Mayors if I'm needed, but I am here.
Okay. And then do we want to do introductions?
If you'd like to.
We usually do introductions of our audience, so Rick.
Rick Metra.
Scott Hennings, McHenry County DOT.
Terry Capel, McHenry.
Gary Scott, Pace Suburban Bus Paratransit Project Manager.
Ed Gallagher, Pace Suburban Bus Community Relations Representative.
Mary Donner, Chairman RPC.
Kevin Kuberski, McHenry County DOT.
I'm Bianca Diaz. I'm the Mobility Outreach Coordinator with the RTA.
Gary Barland, McHenry Township Supervisor.
I'm Josie Shattuck, Case Manager with the McHenry County Specialty Court.
Okay, thank you. Then we've got the minutes approval from February, no wait, this is ours. The minutes from November 3rd, 2022. We need those, motion to approve in a second.
So moved. Second.
And then all in favor, I'm assuming? Yes.
Aye.
Okay. Then we're gonna have the public comment period now. Also, because the meeting was, the website, it was listed as at the Nelson Road facility. We're gonna also have public comment at the end in case someone is up there now and on the way, so. But we've got two people who've signed up so far. Terry, if you wanna go first.
Where's the best place to stand? Sit.
You could, maybe you can go to the table if you'd like. Yeah.
Okay. I'm Virginia. I helped Virginia with one of her campaigns in '92. McHenry County Conservation Board many years ago. Anyway, my name is Terry Capel. I'm a resident of McHenry. I've been a resident of McHenry County, say, for 3 years, since 1971. I came here to advocate for expanded bus service, route bus service in McHenry County. When bus service started in the late 70s and into the 80s, we had a much more expansive bus service than we do, route bus service than we do today. The bus was more reliable for people who need to use it. They could adjust their schedule on the hour. There were buses on the hour, every hour, from the 5 o'clock hour till the 7 o'clock hour. Right now, as you probably all know, there's a couple buses in the morning, a couple in the afternoon, nothing in between. And the dial-a-ride service, while there's certainly a need for it, for remote areas, for seniors, for people with disabilities, it's not adequate to get to appointments on time. You can be relatively certain that if you are booked for a bus service to and from where you want to go, if you can get one to and from where you want to go, you're not sure what time you're going to get there, so you can miss your appointments. You can wind up being there so late that you don't have time to do what you wanted to do before the bus you scheduled is due to pick you up. I tried to get a bus to the transportation meeting yesterday so I could attend that meeting in the morning at 8:15. I was unable to do it the day before. And the dial-a-ride service, you can look at a map and see, well, it covers a great area. I believe now it covers all of McHenry County. The problem with it is that a bus, it's limited to how many stops the bus can make in a day. as far as how many people can ride it. So if many times you'll call and you want a bus and you can't schedule a bus because they can't get you to and from where you want to go. And that was the case for me yesterday. I'm sorry, scheduling for yesterday, the day before. Route bus service is much more reliable. When I was in late 70s, I took it to go to, I'm sorry, in the early 80s, I took it to go to MCC. You can use it, you could get to your class shortly before it's commenced. You could get a bus shortly after it commenced. You didn't have to waste 6 hours, 8 hours in the middle of the day waiting for a bus to get home. And I don't know if I'm on a time limit here, but
You are at 3 minutes, Terry, so just try to summarize.
okay, I'll summarize, and I hope to be back at these meetings because I know this is a long-term effort. But for the sake of reliability, and also the bus service we have now, it doesn't cover business districts. It doesn't cover towns that, when the bus route was laid out, were only like 5,000 people. Huntley was like 2,000 people. So we just need an expansion to cover more areas, to be more reliable so people can take the bus, more people can fit on the bus. Right now, it's so unreliable that people are discouraged from using it, and we need to do better and also gets people off the roads, less wear and tear, less congestion, and it's better for the environment. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mason.
I don't remember the 80s service. It was as good as that.
That was my pre-bus days. Mary Donner?
Good afternoon. Mary Donner. I've been appointed as the chairman for the RPC, the Regional Plan Commission, for the following year. And we've got a lot of very interesting things happening. Halsey Lynn Levine has been the consultant working with us, gathering information for the last year. We've been having meetings quarterly, which kind of, it was difficult because we didn't have a handle on anything that was going on. And when we got the information, then we ended up adjourning until the next meeting, which again was 3 months away, and everybody forgot. So that's going to be changing, partially because now that we have all the information and we've had so many of the workshops going, that we will be able to discuss what we've read. The House of Levine's going to have the information ready by beginning of March, and March 23rd we're going to be reviewing it in committee. So everybody will have a chance to really look it over and talk about things. We're going to have a meeting this month in order to kind of regroup and say, you know, where did we miss? What did we really hit on very well? And how can we make it more inclusive and everybody can have a chance to really shine? And that's what we're kind of looking for. So if you have any questions, you can ask Renee. She has the answer. No, I do have the answers, and you are always welcome to contact me at maryd.ret, as in retired, at yahoo.com.
Is there a website for?
Yes, there is. Renee?
The easiest way to get to it is go to the county website, and the banner on the top of our website, the second scroll will take you straight to the 2050 comp plan website.
And that's the label on it, 2050?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Any questions? Thank you.
Thank you. We're moving to old business now. The first is the MCRide program update. Jasmine, I hope.
Yes. So in your packet, I've included the ridership update from October, November, and December. I won't go too much into it because we have the yearly ridership that will kind of visualize this for you. But we have those figures in your packet. I did want to take a look at MCC. Ridership in total from October to November was 769 rides. 5310 eligible trips for the 3 months was 12,384, with the general public being 9,226.
And Jasmine, we got a few new people here in the room. Can you explain the MCC, what that program is, how that works?
Sure. So MCC works with MCRide, where basically MCC covers the trips for their students. So as long as those rides are going to MCC, MCC covers the cost, and we collect those figures and present those to PTAC every time we meet. I believe that's been in effect since October of 2021. It's been a pretty successful program, and we're continuing that partnership forward. I believe that funding that they have will get them through this year as well. Next, we have the 2022 ridership. We have the origins with all of the cities that were provided trips, and then we also have destinations. I know this looks like a lot of numbers, so we've put together a heat map. So I'll invite our senior GIS analyst, Kevin Kucharski, who was able to put together this map and kind of walk you through those numbers.
It looks just like this one.
All right, I'm Kevin with the McHenry County DOT. Scott came up to me and Jasmine asked about producing a heat map for you guys that can better show where our riders are coming from or going to. And I took it a few steps further and tried to get a lot more stuff worked out in this. So we have a pie chart of travel purpose showing, work is 56% of the riders using the program is for work. And it goes down through school, shopping, medical, all that stuff. And fully interactive, so like if you wanted to see where all the people from work are coming from, it'll narrow down what it is. It'll also show you what times they are traveling on the system here. So if you wanted to see school, it narrows down, and you can see obviously MCC shows a lot of people riding to there, and then where they're coming from as well for that. This chart narrows it down by how many people from each village in that category. So like we're in the school, the work category, the school category, or actually this just shows how many are using the system from what village. And then again with the times here. So and then at the bottom it shows just straight up numbers. If you wanted to have, there's 165 yearly students going to school there or for the year, and your total rides in this filter. So.
And I'll point one thing out while Kevin's going through this. The other category in the bottom right, so there's students, seniors, people with disabilities, and then other. Other is they either didn't tell us who they are as a person, right? It doesn't mean that they're not a senior. They may be a senior, they just didn't tell us their birthday, right? So when you see other, don't think that they're, not a student, not a senior, and not disabled. They could be any one of those, or maybe all three. So I just wanted to point that out.
Yeah, I mean, we have to fill in where we may have missing data, but that's kind of the box we put them in for that. So yeah, and it's fully, you can zoom around and see where people are going, where they're coming from. You can see, the shopping district of Woodstock is lit up pretty heavy, and when you filter down to it, you can tell that that's where they're going. The shopping districts of Crystal Lake here in McHenry. So it's just a helpful visual tool to see, where we could possibly improve fixed routes or anything like that. So we
Can I just ask you a quick question?
Yeah.
So the ridership for MCC is over 700. That said there was like 215 students. Am I not interpreting this right?
Unduplicated people?
It's labeled students, so possibly they might not have been This
Same
is,
people writing it every day, is that?
yeah,
would count them
possibly,
more
I
than
don't know
once?
how exactly,
Well, and not to put Gary on the spot, but Gary from PACE, so the PACE call center helps us, they give us the data on who's riding this program. And so how the call center classifies people maybe is a question more for PACE. We just took whatever data we got from PACE and visualized it here. But, you know, Gary, not to put you on the spot, but.
No. So if, you know, the person, when they're registering, didn't give, you know, information on what they're using it for, then that would be reflected in like the other category. But I was wondering, kind of a question back, was funding source looked at all for like MCC and what yearly rides were for that? Was it broken down in that way?
it was just broken down by purpose. So
I see.
if they wrote a purpose of student, that's what the filter is going on. I mean, I can certainly change the categories as to how it's looking. If a funding source is specifically MCC, I can create that category as a filter for it. It might show a more accurate number as to
Yeah.
how it is. So.
Because we, there are two funding sources for how we track things at PACE. We have Mid-County and then MCC, so we know all the trips that are MCC. that
Okay.
are taken on the.
No, that's good information because I'm new to this position, so
Okay.
I'm kind of learning the ins and outs of what everyone's looking for and how the program works. So.
And this is the first draft. I have a feeling Kevin's going to improve this and add to it over the years. Right now, this is only for, I guess, staff purposes. So I think it's only internal use. We're trying to make sure there's no identifying information and no one can glean certain information from this. But if we feel comfortable and if PACE gives us the go-ahead, we'd love to make this publicly available someday so that people, riders, or the public, or policymakers could go in and take a look at where their constituents are riding, where they want to get to. To Terry's point during public comment, where should we look at putting a bus route in the future? US 14 in Crystal Lake pops really, really hot. Right now, there is no bus route in US 14. So this is a tool we can use for planning purposes going forward.
Yeah, I mean, you can see I got points of interest like the Crystal Lake train station's a hot spot. You know, most of the train stations are hot spots, and we got hospitals, stuff that people visit. I know we include the one down here. There were a few dots on that one as well. So, any other questions?
Are there other things you want Kevin to look at adding to this map? Other layers we can add, or anything that would help this committee?
I'm curious how many of these might be like round trip versus just a one-way. Because I'm curious if there, you know, is it I can get a ride in the morning but I can't in the afternoon or vice versa. I think that would be interesting data versus just one ride or
Right,
or two.
and we can certainly look at that. This, like you said, was kind of the first draft, and we were kind of whipping it together to kind of see what would work.
Yeah.
Now that
Just
I can
curious.
definitely look into that and see what it is, because these are all origin points. It's hard to show an origin and on one email, but
Right.
It seems like every day I'm having Kevin add something new, but I just thought we should probably have the fixed bus routes on this map as maybe a toggleable layer. You can toggle on and off, just to see where there is
so you can turn
coverage.
some stuff on and off. So.
Yeah, so that'd be something maybe Kevin you could add in the future as well.
Change the bottom if you wanted to see a picture of the landscape. We got plenty of extra little functionality with it.
So are there route buses on there now? You're talking
Not shown
Yeah.
on this map. Right now, the only line work you see are the county board districts. I had Kevin add that last minute as well. We presented this tool to our transportation committee yesterday, and I wanted them to see that this program's being used by every county board district. It wasn't just a Southeast McHenry County program. It was really truly a countywide program. So in the future, maybe I'll have Kevin back, maybe more than once a year, we'll see. But I think the next time we show this, there'll probably be more bells and whistles. And yeah, thank you, Kevin, for showing us.
Thank you.
Yeah, and also, you know, you can layer down by time if you want to see, you know, why is so many people riding at this time? Who is it? Work people, whatever. So.
Is there consideration, for example, as what this gentleman was saying, is was not able to get to the meeting here? You know, is there a consideration for this being
stopping point and when people need to get here?
I mean, this more or less is a visualization tool to see where people are riding from and to. You know, what we can determine off of this is based on, you know, the committee and our decisions with the transportation.
Well, Virginia, let me ask you, I want to understand your question better. So are you asking, does this show trips that didn't take place? Like, for instance, Terry tried getting a ride, he couldn't. That's not showing up here. He wanted to get from point A to point B, but that ride never took place.
Right.
I would like to see that. You know, that'd be kind of cool to map out on top of this data of where rides aren't taking place, right? And we do have trip denial information, so potentially we could see if that information could be utilized to make a similar map going forward.
Absolutely, yeah, we can do that.
Because our county has a lot of morning meetings, for example,
Correct.
and if you're not coming here, then, you know.
Right, potential for customers, more or less, or for residents to ride.
I think one thing that might be helpful in this as well is you can see when the peak times are of day for, you know, just the service in general, like more towards the morning and then that afternoon hour, you know, probably 2 o'clock, you know.
It's, and to that point, you know, this committee approved expanding hours this year. Notice this is the old system from 6 a.m. to 7 p.m., but it does kind of tail off at the end of the day. So I'm interested to see how much more of a tail there is now that we expand into 11 p.m. and whether or not the 7 a.m. hour or the 5 a.m. hour that we just added kind of takes some demand off of the 6 a.m. hour. So Gary, if you got other ideas for us, let us know.
Sure.
Because Gary works with this data more than anyone in this room. So yeah, we'll definitely reach out to you.
If there's no other questions, then thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
It's really cool.
Are we ready for the service partner reports? Okay, first one's the RTA update.
Gary, if we could have Metra go first, Rick Mack is here.
First one's the Metra update?
Yes, unfortunately, I have to leave at 2:45. Thank you for coming to my request. Okay, we have a brief update from Metra. Metra shattered our record of competitive federal grants. This is great news. We received over $200 million of federal grants in 2020 and 2022. As part of that grant, we received our largest discretionary grant of $117 million, and that's for the replacement of 11 bridges on the UP North Line. That's in the area of Evanston, Chicago. We previously replaced, in the past 10 years, we replaced 11 bridges, so this is phase 2 of that, and these will be 11 more bridges that will be replaced with those dollars. We are grateful for our congressional delegation who are very supportive and very successful, obviously, in getting Metra these grants. Metra also is beginning a rollout of a new train tracker website. This is GPS oriented. This is going to really help out our communication with our customers. It's going to give you real-time station times, real-time minutes, and trip planning. So this is really going to be a big success and very welcomed by our customers. On the ridership, Metra's at about 45% ridership of our pre-pandemic levels. We are continuing to add service back. When the pandemic hit, we reduced our service by 50%. And since then, we've been slowly adding service back as we identified demand. And what I mean by identified demand is we've been taking surveys of our riders, and so in doing so, we're crafting our new schedules, what I mean our pre-pandemic schedules, to meet the demand of today. We're seeing that there's more midday demand, so instead of people going downtown from 7, 8 in the morning until 4 or 5 in the evening, they may be going downtown 9, 10 in the morning, coming and leaving to go back home at 2. So we are crafting our schedules for this new reality, and I know that Metra is certainly going to be up to that challenge. Yeah, I'll be glad that concludes my report, and I'll be happy to answer any questions.
I have a question. When the Metra goes through Woodstock, you know, they're talking about enlarging 47. How big a project is that and when would that be accomplished?
Well, they're not widening the overpass there, that's remaining the same. There's gonna be, in order to avoid doing that, they're doing roundabouts. So there'll be, I believe, 5 roundabouts, correct? That will be turning around, so it's not gonna affect Metra at all.
Oh,
The only thing that they're doing with the rail line itself is they're drilling another tunnel just for a pedestrian trail, for a bike path, right? Off the road. So they're gonna be sort of using the existing underpass for the 4 lanes of traffic, and then drilling a new underpass on the rail line.
thank you.
And that, just so everybody's aware, that project is scheduled to go to construction next year, in 2024. You'll see shovels in the ground during that.
Excellent, thank you.
Okay, thank you. And now, maybe we're going to RTA updates?
I have a few updates here. My name is Bianca. I'm a mobility outreach coordinator for the RTA. I cover McHenry County as well as Lake County, Northwest Cook County, and North Shore Cook County. I have a few updates here from our mobility management department. First off, the RTA Strategic Plan, Transit is the Answer, will be presented to the board for a vote on February 16th. The community planning program will be announcing the 6 projects they selected at the board meeting that's occurring on February 16th. Section 5310 call for projects will be opening on March 20th, and the applications will be due by April 21st. Recently, we launched a new ADA paratransit pilot program. This pilot is an initiative to remove the paper application. So now, new applicants will be receiving a short self-assessment, and then they're encouraged to schedule a phone interview and in-person assessment. For ADA paratransit riders returning, they will schedule a phone interview to determine whether or not there is a need for an in-person assessment. And the RTA Mobility Outreach Coordinators, we offer 3 different types of presentations: group transit orientation presentations, a Jeopardy game that's made for transition and high school students that may have a disability. We also offer a trip planning workshop. If any organization present here today is interested in any of those presentations, feel free to reach out to me. I have business cards with me, and like I said, I cover McHenry and Lake County. And that's it. Does anybody have any questions? Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, and then the PACE bus,
Yes.
Aaron Ed?
Ed Gallagher, Pace Suburban Bus Community Relations. First, with the ridership update, in November 2022, Pace carried about 1.1 million riders on our fixed route service. Similar to the last time, similar to this time last year. On a typical weekday, there were roughly 47,500 riders on our fixed route service. System-wide, which is our fixed route, dial-a-ride service, van pool, and paratransit, Pace carried 1.5 million riders in November of 2022. This was about 2.4% higher compared to that same time the previous year. There were about 67,000 riders system-wide daily. Year to date, up through November, so I'm hoping to have updated ridership at our next meeting, but through November of last year, our fixed route service was up 10.7% system-wide. Or 10.7%, and then system-wide was up 11.7%. We were carrying roughly 70% of our pre-pandemic levels, so seeing strong returns. I'm going to save my Route 550 updates for new business, but I will also share that Pace Suburban Bus, we are continuing to meet the needs of the region, and to do so, Pace has made recruitment a very high priority for this year. So last year, we launched our partnerships with local community colleges in order to remove financial barriers for the next generation of professional bus drivers. In those partnerships, we are working to enroll qualified applicants in a 2-week free CDL Class B commercial driver's license. We currently have some college partnership pre-hire events coming up in the next few weeks. We've got Elgin Community College on February the 9th from 6 p.m. to 9 p.m. That's going to be at Building K in room 128 on 1700 Spartan Drive in Elgin. I have flyers for that event if anyone has any questions. It also has a really good step model of how the applicant moves from walking in the door to employment with PACE through that 2-week enrollment period. We also have Harper College, which is part of the program, on February 16th from 1 p.m. to 4 p.m. The American Job Center, which is in Wheeling. And then another Harper College pre-hire event, but this one is at their main campus in Palatine on February 21st from 6 p.m. to 9 p.m. Anyone who's looking for more information on our hiring events or our career opportunities can check paceplus.com/careers. And then I'll hand it over to my colleague Gary Scott to give a quick update on MCRide.
Sure. Thanks. Come up to the kid table. Scott said. So, just piggybacking off of what Ed said, employment opportunities are abundant in the region, especially at PACE, but also with our contracted services at First Transit and other providers. Also with taxi and with USERV. Starting in December of 2022, we began a partnership with USERV, a TNC rideshare provider, and who specializes in ADA compliant trips. And we are still working on expanding that throughout the region. Right now, it's in Kane County with the Ride in Kane program with ADA services, with DuPage, Ride DuPage, ADA services, and then in parts of North Cook and South Cook. We're still working on McHenry County. We need more drivers. So every week I send an email with links for career opportunities to Jasmine and the DOT staff. So if you're interested in that, you can also reach out to me or reach out to them and they can send you the link for employment opportunities. We have had just a few complaints recently, which is probably showing that our on-time percentage has been meeting standards. The 30-minute pickup window, which was implemented during 2020, has obviously helped with that, but even at the 15-minute window, we're still meeting PACE standards. So we've been working on increasing capacity by hiring more drivers. Our contractor, First Transit, has been increasing their staffing, not only just for drivers, but for call center representatives. So hold times have been down significantly at the call center. We're still maintaining COVID-19 protocols, sanitizing our buses every day, cleaning them twice a week, and just making sure that riders know they're welcome to wear a mask, but it's not required. As well, I just want to make sure you, every time I always give out my phone number and ways to file a complaint. So you can always get a hold of me at 312-341-8067. And you can file a complaint through our customer relations line, 800-606-1282, option 2. And that's about all I've got for right now. So, but feel free to come and talk to me afterwards. And if anyone has any questions, I'm glad to take them now.
Hey Gary? Yeah. For me and the rest of us who aren't as familiar with the operations side of things, the fact that you're hiring more drivers means that the amount of buses is not the issue, right? You have enough buses, it's just lack of drivers for those buses is what's limiting service expansion in MCRide.
That's right, yes. So
I know that wasn't always the case. I know there previously, years ago, it was lack of capital, rolling stock was a common concern. Now, I'm just glad to hear that it's just the driver side of things that need to be there.
Right, definitely. And one thing that I forgot to mention was that we're seeing an increase in riders taking advantage of the extended hours for MCRide. between the 5 a.m. and 6 a.m. hour, and then the 7 p.m. to 11 p.m. hour. A lot of work trips. I think there are quite a few dialysis trips in the 5 a.m. hour. So it's really great to see that's occurring. And I think from what I've seen with the data as well, the further we've gotten into 2023, the more riders are taking advantage of those new hours. So I think it is spreading, and people will probably be taking MCRide more during those times.
Just a quick question, how are you publicizing the hour change?
I'll take this one.
Yeah.
So with MCRide and most of our countywide dollar rides, public sharing information with the public is both a county and a PACE role. So from PACE's perspective, I know we've included it on our updated website, as well as getting information out when we're giving presentations to different classrooms and situations. And then I know the county has updated its website, issued a couple press releases. It's been in the newspaper, 2 or 3 different newspapers in the area, as well as covered by the Rockford WREX news station. And I think you might be working on an update to the flyer.
We are. Jasmine's updating the brochure that we hand out at events right now. We should have those printed, I would guess, by the end of the month. And we'll make sure, we'll probably enlist Ed's help to get those out to the community, as well as all of you. We like to say, we're a small staff at the DOT. We need assistance from the locals, the cities, the townships, and social service agencies to help us get this information out there.
Is there advertising space on the actual buses?
Yes, yeah, there is advertising space on the buses, and those can be purchased by nonprofits and business.
And I assume you're doing it bilingual. Sorry, done with my questions.
Anything that PACE produces, we generally produce bilingual. For this, the information is produced by the county. So the brochure and all that is handled by the county.
Awesome. Thanks.
Other questions? Okay, I think that wraps up our old business, correct? So we're on to new business, specialty courts, IGA first.
You want me to take this one? I'll take this one. So in your packet, I don't know what page it is, but it's
13.
13, thank you, Tom. So you'll recall last meeting in, what was that, November 3rd, we had specialty courts. Kelly came to talk with this group about some type of partnership between specialty courts and DOT and potentially Independence Health and Therapy to provide transportation for specialty courts clients, getting to drug court, to DUI court, and other places. She came with a very detailed, well thought out proposal, and so what you see in your packet is basically a regurgitation of what Kelly had come to us asking to do. I wanted to just give this committee an update that we've started drafting an IGA between the county, DOT, specialty courts, and Independence Health and Therapy that's currently going through legal review. But we are hopeful, assuming this committee still wants to move forward with that idea, we'll probably bring something forward for approval by the county board in April, through committee in March and then county board in April. So by the middle part of this year, we could have this program in place. The county DOT has agreed in principle to provide $60,000 for this program annually. I think we'll probably prorate it for 2023 because we're going to be already halfway into the fiscal year before we start this. But for $60,000, specialty courts should be able to do what they need to do with Independence Health and Therapy to provide that transportation service. Otherwise, I don't really have anything else to update you on, unless there's just questions or comments that this committee wants to provide. And I believe, did we introduce this yesterday a little bit with our transportation committee? I think we mentioned that we were working on something yesterday with our county board transportation committee. Obviously, this is going to have to go through that committee on March 1st, which is our next meeting, and they'll have to approve it there before it goes to the full county board. But it's helpful that this committee is in support and can provide that support for the committee.
Which we did, right?
Which
Yeah,
you
we
did
did.
back in November, yes.
Yeah.
And I think it was a combination, we would have gotten this done sooner, but a combination of the holidays, lack of staff, and other things sort of delayed it a couple months. That's why you're seeing it here today. So, I just note Josie Shattuck is in the back. She's with Specialty Courts. I wanted to just point her out if there's questions for them. Otherwise, you know, just know we're full steam ahead on this project going forward.
Any questions from Scott or?
I have one. I only have one. The agreement, the IGA, is it, because you said per year, is there a block that the IGA will be introduced to for a certain period of time, or is it 1 year to see what the results are, the outcomes, and then forward, or?
Yeah, I think what we envisioned was an IGA that lasts for the remainder of FY23 as well as all of FY24.
Gotcha.
So it'd be kind of a year and a half.
Right.
And then we would have to reapprove the IGA at the end of 2024 for an extension.
So the 2 years you're saying because it's already in this year? I
Correct,
gotcha. Okay.
yes. I felt we could have done just a 6-month IGA, but that's really not enough time to assess the success or failure of a program like this.
Yep.
Okay, the TNC McHenry County, Scott?
Do you want to take this one or should I?
Sure. So in your packet as well, we've included a memo. In fall of last year, DOT staff began some conversations with Uber to kind of explore what a potential partnership between the county and a TNC could look like to address some of the transit challenges that we're seeing. After a few meetings with Uber, they were able to kind of come up with a couple of programs that we'd like to introduce to you all. And just if there's any questions, if you guys would like to bring forward a recommendation, just introducing this item to you all and what they brought to us. So those two options, the first one being a voucher program. If you all have ever used Uber or Lyft, that would almost kind of function, I think, from the perspective of a rider, is you're given a promotional code. So say it's your first time riding Uber and they want to give you $5 off of your $15 ride. So if we implemented that in a program with us, that would essentially give them a certain amount of money off of their ride. It wouldn't cover the entirety of their ride, but it would provide a little bit of a small voucher for them. Some of the benefits of that, and within this memo, when I mention agency, we're referring to the DOT. So the control is released to the rider, so the rider can choose when they take their ride, use that dashboard within the application like Uber, and have more control of what time and where they're going within the parameters that we set. The second option is Uber Central. So we would be the dispatch. That cost would be covered entirely by the DOT. We could set the parameters and the policies similar to MCRide, and schedule their rides and be in complete communication with the rider. So that would likely be myself. So if someone is wanting to use this and we enrolled them in this program, they would call me, I would set their ride up, and almost function as Pace's call center does, but that would be administered to myself. Those are the two programs that they introduced to us, and so I'd just like to open it up to you all and kind of gauge some initial thoughts, initial ideas, recommendations.
And to be clear, this is on top of our existing MCRide program. It's not a replacement for, this isn't something that's going to take over and be the only game in town. Because I know the question, there probably will be a question about accessibility of these TNC vehicles, right? Mm-hmm. We all know Uber and Lyft, they're not required to be accessible for wheelchairs. Mm-hmm. And so, again, this is going to be sort of a secondary option to the MCRide program for people who need a spontaneous trip. They didn't pre-plan, they didn't schedule their trip a day ahead of time. Or they tried scheduling a trip and they weren't able to get through, or weren't able to successfully book that trip, they would have a sort of a secondary option in those cases. So I just wanted to throw that out there just so there was not any confusion from that perspective.
Is it just,
Go ahead.
I should say, is it just trips within the county, not anywhere else?
Yeah, I believe so. I mean, that would be up to us, but that's the idea, is that it would function within the county.
Yeah, we would be able to geocode, if it was a geographical limitation, we could say that the county border those are eligible trips for this. If you leave the county, those are not eligible, and you wouldn't be reimbursed, or you wouldn't be given the subsidy from a program like this. That's all kind of done behind the scenes. The rider wouldn't know that, but we could let them know that that's a policy for us. And it's not just geography too. We could limit the hours of operation that this would be in place. Like we could say, MCRide does trips from 5 a.m. to 11 p.m., but maybe we want this program to really take the after hours trips from 11 p.m. to 5 a.m., for example. That's where this would take effect. So there's really unlimited flexibility with working with a company like this. And it's not just Uber, by the way. We've had a lot of discussions with Uber, but I know Lyft and others, they have similar models that we can follow.
For the first option, would they still be calling Yasmin, or how would you schedule a ride?
No, that would be on their end. So Uber would coordinate that through their dashboard. The riders say, we have a list, or we've chosen to work with MCC, and we're saying we want to pilot this with MCC. We only want their students to utilize this program. We have some imaginary list. They would open up their app and they would be able to use that based off of their phone number or email. So that would be out of our hands with that first option. That voucher would just be applicable to that account that's
Right.
attached to their email, phone number, name.
But you would have to set up the accounts.
No.
Who would?
Assuming every student at MCC, I'm sure, has an Uber account. Maybe not everyone, but a lot of them do. If we were to give a list of MCC students to Uber and say, these are the people we want to have eligible for this program, Uber would flip a switch on their end in the app, and all of a sudden now an MCC student gets on their app and they try to get an Uber to MCC, they would see that this discount program is there. And it would be automatically applied to their trip. They wouldn't know any different. They may not even know that the county is doing this for them. They would just see
because they weren't paying anyways? Or?
Well, they are paying, but instead of that $20 trip to MCC, it's now $14 because they got a $6 discount, for example.
I get it.
But again, there's unlimited options here.
There's always limits.
We could make this program available to every resident of McHenry County if we wanted to. If we didn't want to set any restrictions, we could say the county DOT will subsidize everyone's Uber trip to a certain dollar amount or a certain percentage. Now, I doubt the county board is going to support something like that. They'll probably want to fine tune that more to a needy population of some sort. But it's up to this committee to sort of drive that discussion. Who do we want to help with something like this? Or is this not something we want to do at all? Gary just talked about USERV, which is a similar TNC program that PACE is rolling out. This is different from that. This would be county-led. Maybe we want to wait for PACE to start something first and see how that's working before we dive headfirst into our own TNC program. I can just say from where I've sat, we were talking about this 9 years ago. I was working on this. And at the time, Uber told me to go pound sand. They did not want anything to do with government agencies because if you remember back 9 years ago, they were conquering the world. They were one of the richest companies out there, and they felt they didn't need to work with transit agencies or government agencies at all. Fast forward now, things are a little bit different, and they're more willing to kind of sit down with Jasmine and I and actually talk through what a program could look like.
Well, my initial thoughts is, I think it's still worth pursuing. I don't like the option one because Jasmine will leave in a week. Then she's going to get a zillion calls.
That's option 2.
Yeah,
Oh,
that's
option 2,
number
I'm sorry.
Okay.
Yeah,
Then
that's
that one.
number 2. I was gonna ask,
Yeah.
you know, what
Well,
is
yeah.
the additional administrative part for DOT to have to take on?
Yeah.
And
that's-
that is a big deal, and that is one of the cons for option number 2.
Yeah.
Now, the pro,
Sorry,
I
option
do
2.
want to be fair and give that its due, you know, stay in court, but for option 2, you know, we know even a $5 discount, or let's say even a $10 discount on Uber, it's going to help, but for a lot of people, that's not enough. They can't afford anything on an Uber because they're low income or whatever the case might be. And option 2 gives us an ability to say, we will fully subsidize that trip to maybe someone's homeless, we want to get them to the homeless shelter, or somebody is needing to get to the doctor and we want to, you know, they don't have any funding to get an MCRide trip, this is a way to get them to the doctor's appointment. It is a headache administratively on us. Like, we would have to then, again, provide a list of people to Uber and say, here are the people we pre-certified that they're eligible for this Uber Central program, and Jasmine would be the one kind of doing the administrative side of the Uber app itself. They would be booking the trip on Uber for this individual, and on top of all of this, as a cut, the way Uber makes money on all of this is that the trip is more expensive than a typical Uber trip would be. So getting to MCC might cost $20 for if I get on my app. Under Uber Central, there's going to be a surcharge, right? Instead of 20, it's going to be $25, and the $5 is the admin fee to incentivize drivers and for Uber to get their cut of the program as well. So it's number 2 is probably definitely more staff time. It could be more costly, but on the other hand, it's going to help people, I think, more, especially super needy people, than option number 1 would.
Well, that's the question, right, is who are we helping? That you just said a few minutes ago. Like, are we helping the people that have the 4 a.m. factory shift that need a ride at 3:30 in the morning? You know, I mean, who are we helping?
But it sounds like you would be able to determine what those criterias are.
Yes. Whether it's income, whether it's subpopulation workers, maybe we want to partner with the business first. I would have loved, and I still want to partner with a city like Crystal Lake and say, you know, the county's willing to put X numbers of dollars into a program like this. We want to match it with Crystal Lake dollars, dollar for dollar, and we can do twice the good for Crystal Lake residents, for example. So there's a lot of things that we could experiment with this program, but it's up to, a lot of people need help, right? A lot of people need transportation. It's up to this body to determine who would be best served by something like this, if anyone. Maybe this isn't something we want to explore at all. I don't know.
Are there any indications, Mary, from some of the focus groups that you've done that would feed into any of this? I don't know if there's anything planning that.
I kind of rely on Scott when it came to transportation. We are so limited in what a regional plan could look like because you require the Fed, the state, the county, the city, all have their own plans. And Scott's group does a wonderful job of coordinating all that stuff and documenting it so that we were able to give a report already to the RPC and House Hill and Levine that they could use with our recommendation. And the recommendation from the RPC is watch out what the county does for the next 5 years, and when that plan's done, check on the next 5, because my crystal ball isn't going to be good in 2050 because I'm not going to be around. You know, and so, you know, where do you care? So it is, for the transportation, it is so well coordinated now that for the group that we talked with municipalities. I've been to all of those focus groups, the charrette that we had for what we planned for the future. Different commissioners have different priorities, and transportation affects everybody because you can't just talk about people. You have to talk about roads. You have to talk about products. We have to talk about what's going to get where, which then affects, do you have industry or do you have retail or do you have, what's your housing? Transportation affects all of it. Or the other way around, all of it affects the transportation that we're looking for, and they've got it all solid, so that's where we're going with them right now. We'll see what Halcyon Levine comes up with in March.
And I'll throw something else out there for the committee to just think about, because I don't expect a decision to be made this meeting. I mean, I'd love input and ideas, even from the audience, but this is going to be a long process to get to a final product. I'll say this, the average trip on MCRide is about $30 a trip, okay? Half of that is paid for by PACE, $15. The other $15 is paid for by the county. Now, we get federal grants that help reimburse some of that, about $7 of that. But at the end of the day, the county is in for about $8 for every single trip that we provide on MCRide. So if we were to offer a $7 voucher on Uber, and we convince somebody who would have taken MCRide to take an Uber instead to get a $7 discount, we are saving money. This is a money-saving program. It's not an increased expense whatsoever. This could actually save taxpayer dollars. Now, that's best-case scenario. I don't expect that there's a ton of people that would probably transition from MCRide to this program. Maybe I'm wrong, but there are opportunities for cost savings here, and we have to structure the program the right way to make those incentives mean something. But there's a lot of potential here using programs like this.
I will say that option 2 would provide an option for people who would have barriers with using a application, like a phone application, or is hesitant in that because maybe they can't or don't want to learn something like that. And I wouldn't stereotype my senior population, but we do get a lot of, because we have the ability to allow them that freedom of being able to schedule rides themselves through our program, and we get quite a bit of resistance, maybe because we're open to doing it for them, enabling to an extent, but we do get some pushback on that. And if there was a population that was, I'm going to use the seniors as an example because that's my wheelhouse, but let's say that there's an opportunity for them to book these things through another agency where they don't have to worry about it, or someone who would struggle with something like that, to remove that barrier, I think it would be a good option for that population. So if the population that is being looked at are folks who are very low income, maybe don't have the ability, or there's challenges or barriers presented to them to do it on their own, I could see that in very positive.
I think that's a good point. I think the first option assumes that, one, everyone has a smartphone, and that everyone is able to access it. I know we get different feedback about how MCRide operates as it is now, of having to call in, but we do have a lot of riders who are very familiar with that process and they're able to make a call, and are able to do that themselves. I know that there's specific challenges of having to know how to work an application, download it, set it up. So I think that's great.
And even beyond the technology piece, I know people personally who just are uncomfortable taking a trip in somebody else's car, that did not go through PACE screening and training, sensitivity training, and all the other. I know Uber has their own training system that they have, but it's not to the standards of PACE. I almost guarantee that. So it's not something I concern myself with, but I know people do feel that way. So we have to be sensitive to that as well.
What about the difference in the vehicles? I mean, if you're an Uber, you're probably used to have a normal car,
Correct.
as opposed to MC, where you could have a wheelchair or something of that sort. What effect would that have on the program, do you think?
I think that's a great question, and I think the answer is, if we went with a program like this with Uber, we just have to acknowledge that those vehicles are not going to be wheelchair accessible.
Mm-hmm.
This is a program that's not going to be available to a subset of our users who need wheelchair vans or some kind of lift system to get onto the bus. The idea would be that MCRide still fills that gap for those that do need that, but this would be an add-on for those that don't need that. And it's funny, I've spoken a lot with the RTA about a program like this, and it's my understanding, PACE couldn't do something like this themselves because PACE is held to a higher standard when it comes to accessibility and ensuring equal treatment among every rider out there. Because we're not a transit agency, we're simply an agency of government, we have more flexibility to do things like this, to try things out and not be, I hate to use the word handcuffed, but we're not held to the same standard as PACE is when it comes to this.
What about, do you have any call for like multi-riders, like a family or anything like that? Would that be part of the, because you're going to get an Uber maybe that could handle 4 or 5 people?
Yeah, I know we do have some people that ride as a group on our existing MCRide program, and they could do the same with this, right? A group could ride together from point A to point B and share the cost of that ride.
I would just say that kind of to what you're talking about, we have a lot of people where we have to put specific notes, no low-step vehicle, no high-step vehicle. They can't sit in the back seat of a 2-door car, so they're just being experienced in that way with our drivers that drive their own vehicles. I have someone who won't ride in a white car. And that's okay, that's their choice. But those kinds of details are there. It comes down to, again, to time. If those are details that would need to be known to help from the agency perspective of helping to coordinate those things, rider satisfaction is a whole nother layer. What you don't want is people to be like, well, I did this, and the Uber that came, they were driving an SUV, I couldn't even get in. We have to take a step stool sometimes, to help them, which again is, that liability thing that, thank goodness, I don't, standards, So anyway, just putting that there too, because there are some, one doesn't want many male drivers. Well, they know that limits their ability to get the ride, but it's on their terms. And you kind of throw their terms out the window sometimes, which is important, especially if they're, got other barriers, whether it's mental health. That's the other thing too. A wheelchair is not the only way people are disabled. And I think sometimes that's forgotten, those invisible disabilities that this would address. And those people really need this kind of help, but you have to be aware of what those invisible disabilities might look like.
I know Kevin has can we call on
Yeah.
Kevin? Is that okay?
Yeah.
I was just going to say, could it be thought of more as maybe a safety aspect? I know Uber is thought of more of the younger crowd of using it. If socially it was a thing, I don't know if we wanted to sponsor social programs like that, but if somebody says, hey, I'm going to take the Uber to the bar instead, and then take it home as opposed to deciding to drive. And is that something we want to encourage people to use a transit for safety of the roads if they're making poor decisions?
Yeah. Right. There are cities around the country that have done exactly what Kevin just said. They'll say, we will sponsor the entire cost of somebody's trip home from the bar. Like, we won't pay for them to get to work, we won't pay for them during the day, but from 7 p.m. to 2 a.m., their cost to ride from a downtown location with all the bars in town to their home is free. And it's just for that purpose, to get drunks off the road and increase safety. And there's obviously a public cost to that, but it maybe is actually cheaper to do that than it is to deal with the after effect of somebody dying on the roadway. So, like I said, there's unlimited ways we could take this, and that's why the memo is so short, because we didn't want to lead you down one path or the other. We wanted to really hear your thoughts at this early stage of the process.
Because I'm looking at the memo, the next steps according to the recommendation. Have you heard enough now to have more to research, and will you guys do that research, or?
What I'd like, if not today, maybe at the next meeting, what I'd like from this committee is to let us know what population is this for? Is this for seniors? Is it for students? Is it for low-income people? Is it for a geographic area? If that would help us, then, once we narrow that down, I think the rest should be pretty easy. But right now, there's such a large universe of possibilities. It's hard for us to go back to Uber and say, this is what we want, and we just don't know. And we will bring this topic up at our transportation committee and get their thoughts. Maybe they have strong opinions that this should only be for population X. But we still want to hear this body's concerns and ideas as well. Anybody else from the audience?
Steve, or Scott, if I could just mention, so from PACE's perspective, we are actually in the process of a pilot program with Uber right now in DuPage County. It is called the DuPage Access Program, where individuals who are ADA eligible have the opportunity to opt into an Uber ride instead of a paratransit or the smaller white bus, similar to the MCRide buses. So that is currently active. It's been active since January of 2022. And last we heard, it's been extended into this new year. So we're continuing to, pilot that, look at it, collect data from that, see how users are liking it. And so we're collecting a lot of data through this pilot. So that is something that we're working on. And then on top of that, as we mentioned, the user service. So that is a TNC that specifically has ADA accessible vehicles, wheelchair accessible vehicles. And we're optimistic to have that expanding.
Okay, for both of those programs, it's ADA
Yes.
riders?
Yeah, both ADA riders. And there is ADA region within McHenry County. So.
Good.
And then user will be rolled out to MCRide riders as well.
Okay.
It'll be for other coordinated services and dial rides. So, but it is also, you have to get the blessing from, the entities, but I think MCRide has already said, they're okay with it.
Going back to the discussion about the possible riders, could we get something from the trip denials that's not, related to lack of drivers or of why some trips are being denied, and if perhaps that might.
Yeah, we can pull something together for the next meeting. Yeah, we can pull something together. We'll have to talk about how we show that. And there's a lot of, it's a confusing topic. There's three different trip denials, and people deny trips for various reasons, right? But we'll try to simplify it as much as we can and show that at the next meeting.
But and then anecdotally, why are people saying,
Yeah.
I can't do this? Because I know that like you said, the 9 years ago when you first contacted Uber was because I felt there was direction from the county board about why, why we don't need this expanding McRide as much as we need more rideshare programs. So kind of any input from proponents of that saying these are the riders who don't want to take McRide, and maybe we can to narrow down the populations, because as of now I'm thinking it's like everyone would, if you're gonna give me a discount, I'll take it. I mean, I would think not everyone, but I think a lot of people would say, yeah, I'd rather take an Uber if it's so.
Just like a lot of people would rather take a fixed route if it's available,
Yeah.
right? It's more convenient. It's
On the schedule.
It's oftentimes cheaper to do a fixed. There's a lot of reasons people make the decision they do to ride a certain type of trip. But yeah, we can bring that up next time. And to Gary's point about, this isn't new for transit agencies. They are working with the Ubers and the Lyfts of the world. And really for them, a lot of it is cost savings on the ADA side. ADA paratransit, we don't talk much about ADA paratransit at this committee because we don't really have very much, if any, ADA paratransit being provided out in McHenry County. And there's reasons for that I won't get into today, but ADA paratransit is a very large and growing piece of transit agencies' budgets, and they're looking for any opportunity to cut costs and sort of free up funding on the ADA side. And working with the TNC is one way agencies are saving money, is by subsidizing people's trips on TNCs instead. And on the ADA side, $30 per trip is what we're doing on MCRide. Some parts of the country, they're having $60, $70, $80 per trip costs on their ADA paratransit rides. If you can give somebody a $20 voucher, you're saving a lot of money. And if that person doesn't need a bus to show up to pick them up, it makes a lot of sense. So it's different, but it's related.
Do we ever ask those questions? I mean, if I made a reservation, someone going to ask me, why are you doing this?
I mean, it's all that conversation happens at the PACE call center.
Mm-hmm.
We don't ask those questions, but maybe they would glean something. I don't know.
I think that's in the script right now. We really try to get people on and off the phone as quick as possible.
Yeah.
So
yeah, it's all about speed at the call center.
Sure. But I mean, it might be of some value to
Or
know.
even, yeah, like a survey. We could maybe potentially put a survey of our
Yeah.
riders together, asking questions like this that they don't normally get asked.
I feel like, Scott, as more data you get about the later hours will help you too, because I feel like the later hours, there's definitely a lot of people that need, whether it's a ride home from a bar or a ride home from your job, or the late class. I mean, our classes go till 10:30 sometimes. So, I mean, I think that sort of after hours, late hour kind of thing, there's a real need for that stuff. So
I agree.
maybe as you get more information from the extended hours, that might help.
That was when we first brought up the recommendations in the middle of last year. I think it was this committee where that was a kind of a vague idea of what if we provide TNC service after our previous hours. So if MCRide isn't operating, so from 7 p.m. to 6 a.m. or 5 a.m., that would be a service. So just throwing that out that I think this was something that was discussed last year as well.
Yeah.
Well, if you have other ideas between now and the next PTAC meeting, send them our way. We'd love to hear more. Did I cut anybody out? Does anybody else want to say anything on this topic?
No, I have something I don't know if I'm allowed.
Go ahead.
I do have an opinion on the Uber. I think people who can't afford a car are not likely to be able to afford an Uber. And $7 voucher, say somebody has to go to MCC and the total cost to them is $10. That's $50 a week for us, college student. That's pretty much prohibitive. And I spent 8 months through June last year having to depend on bus service in this county for all of my rides. I did get occasional rides from other people, but most of my rides were through the bus service. And I'm quite familiar with how ineffective, how many things I would not be able to do because of the ineffectiveness of bus service in our county. And if you're calling up PACE for the dial ride, and after a couple of times you find it's not serving your needs, or the route buses with 6-8 hours of lag time before you can get a ride home, or there's bus routes where you have to wait 20 minutes or so for the next connection to your next ride. If it's inclement weather where it's 20 below wind chill, that's a health risk. And pretty soon people get tired of, get wise to the fact that it's not reliable to go to a job, to go to appointments, and it discourages user. And if you have something reliable like route buses, like I say, I do think there's a need for dial ride, but if you have something like route buses that are reliable, more people will ride them because they can count on them. And they can make adjustments in their schedule on the spot instead of having to call 7 days in advance. And even sometimes 7 days in advance, you can't get the ride. So And I just wonder, I'm just curious for my own curiosity. Like I say, I've used the bus service in not only in the last year, but in previous years I've gone extended periods having to rely on it. I wonder if anybody else in the room has ever had to rely on bus service in McHenry County for an extended period of time. So my point is, I hear a lot of comments about what's good for people that have to rely on it, and I'm the only one in the room that has ever had to rely on it. And so I think there's a lot of this talk is hypothetical to each of you, and I've been toying with the idea of doing something like a 1-month challenge to people in county government, to challenge them to go 1 month and make bus service in our county your only means of getting around. And then you can come back and say, I understand what it's like. So I know it's not likely anyone's going to do that, and I know if anyone takes that challenge, they're not going to get to everything they want to go to. But it would be a way of saying, I understand what somebody else goes through by walking in my own shoes. So I'll just leave it at that, and I hope you don't mind me interrupting.
No. Thank you. So you'll continue
TBD.
research.
To be continued, yes.
Do we ever have an opportunity to have the endpoint, like MCC or even a mall or something, get into that? You know, there might be people who would go to that place like MCC or even to some store or something. Do we ever try to get any assistance from the endpoint?
Funding, like funding assistance. We've not been successful in getting funding assistance. My big pet peeve of mine is that a new senior housing facility will go in and they'll generate 10 trips a week, and when you approach them and you say you should help fund these 10 trips a week, they laugh at you like that's your job. Like, we just provide them a place to live. It's up to you to transport them. And so the answer is no. It's very unlikely that a business or anything is going to help pay for something like this. We can try, but it so far has not been successful.
No, I mean at the end point, you know, like you're going to have people who would go to a mall or go to a restaurant or something if they were able to do that, and see about getting collective, possibility of funding because you're going to pick up people. You know,
Sure.
If seniors going to like to go to a certain restaurant or something, even if it's a small amount. I don't know if that would work or not.
Maybe. And you got me thinking too, you know, that this program could, to Terry's point, like, if the idea is we need to get people to fixed route, whether that's Metra or PACE, this program could get people to the Metra stations, or it could get you to a PACE bus stop. And that could be what this is for. So that last mile, for instance, that could be the purpose of a program like this, and it could only be for that. That's an idea. Every trip that either originates or ends at a bus stop is eligible. Just throwing that out there again for more ideas, but I'm kind of idea'd out at this point. That's up to you to kind of give us your ideas.
Well, I mean, there was something a long time ago, it never happened here, that businesses would help fund if they had people going Metra and then getting from the train station to the business, and we didn't have transportation. Yeah. And there is a certain advantage to the endpoint funding some of this.
Businesses also used to get pension systems, right?
Right.
They don't do that anymore either. There's a lot of cost cutting that's gone on. And unfortunately, transit is one of those things that businesses really don't get involved with anymore.
Okay, well, we'll await your next report. The PACE 550 reroute.
Yeah.
Please.
Scott. Yeah. So I have new routes for everybody, so then you can see, pass that down. So you may remember last year, this issue came up about, potentially looking at new routes, a routing system for the 550 into Crystal Lake from the Elgin Transportation Center. Well, I come back with some good news. With the input and support of both the City of Crystal Lake and McHenry County, PACE has proposed a pilot routing change to Route 550 through downtown Crystal Lake. The route in front of you is the brand new route. So the newly proposed change would remove 550 from Main Street between Pyatt Road and Main Street Avenue, Main Street, and the Virginia intersection. And the intersection, it would also remove it from the intersection of Main Street and Northwest Highway. Instead, between those two intersections, Route 550 would operate via Virginia Road and Northwest Highway before rejoining the current path. So it would come up from the south on Pyatt, it would take a left onto Virginia Avenue, as she's drawing with the arrow, and then turn right onto Northwest Highway and return to Main Street, in which it would then turn left and then continue its route to the Crystal Lake Metra station. PACE is planning for this new route to be implemented as part of our March Run Pick, which would take effect on Monday, March 6th, 2023. The map you have in front of you has that date at the very bottom. I again want to thank the City of Crystal Lake, McHenry County, the PTAC committee for bringing this issue up and for everyone coming together with alternative and new ideas and working with us to provide increased access to public transportation within the community. It is my goal to be in the community sharing this information, this new route. We'll have a passenger notice. We'll have posted information throughout the community, as well as some information on one of the bus stops that will be going away because of this change. But we're alternatively moving 3 stops onto Virginia. So there's like 1 stop that is impacted, but we're optimistic that it's close enough that someone, if they were to get picked up there, they could walk to the next stop. But I'm open to any questions. If you take a closer look at the back, you'll see the timings. The difference between the old 550 and the new 550 are when it arrives in Crystal Lake Metro Station. So it's going to be 2 minutes later than it had originally been. So the new stop at Crystal Lake is just 2 minutes longer than the previous timing had been, to take into account the increased traffic and turns and the potential for these 4 new stops to generate increased ridership.
I'm assuming this, but it's both ways, right?
Yes, it will go both ways. It goes north and south, so anyone taking, within this region, there's one large apartment complex, Darlington, right there behind Mariano's, as well as 2 different townhome communities, one which is very large to the south side of Virginia Avenue. And then it also includes access to all the businesses on Route 14, US Northwest Highway. But yes, it will go both north and south, so someone getting on it can also get back off on the way back. And then this, as we've talked about, this is the Route 550 that does reach to our I-90 Randall Park and Ride that connects up with our 606 and 600 series routes that goes on the tollway out towards Schaumburg, out towards Rosemont, towards O'Hare. So this would create greater access to that as well for that section of the community.
So the numbers of the stops, I'm sorry.
On the back?
Yeah.
So yeah, if you look on the front, you'll see these numbers 5, 4, 6.
Right.
And if you turn it over, those numbers coincide with the stop itself. And then you can see what time the bus is estimated to be arriving at that stop. And this route is on our new transit app as well. So if you were to download transit and live in this region and want to utilize it, you could put in the location you want to go and it would give you step-by-step directions and timing of when that bus would be arriving.
Forgive Mike, what did it do before? I'm sorry.
Oh, what did it do before? It just stayed on Main Street. So
Never mind.
originally, it just kept going on Main Street up to the Crystal Lake Metra station. So we are diverting it off to pick up this neighborhood, the apartment complex, as well as the businesses.
Are the buses diesel?
Yes, these ones are diesel buses. I believe are 35-foot blue buses.
We're just in the middle of doing some air quality. It's nothing to do with you guys, right? Air quality measuring, and we're gonna have a measurement not too far away.
Oh,
So
okay. Well,
it's good
this
to know.
takes effect in March, so you
It's
may
not
see
just-
some
yeah.
changes. Long term, though, PACE as an agency has made a commitment to zero emissions by 2040. So we are bringing in our first, we've already got our first electric bus, but we'll have 20 new ones next year. Those will be launching in Lake County, and then we will progressively launch those throughout the region. So the 550 could be transitioned to electric in not too far off. And it is a small change. You can, right below the circle is where you can kind of see the little left, the little triangle, but that's where the little change is happening. And you'll definitely be hearing more from me in the next, like 3 weeks, planning a large-scale outreach to this area as well as to our stakeholders to get the information out.
And Ed, you'll commit to coming back and updating us on ridership on a regular basis and letting the committee know how things are working out there?
Thank you. The RTA Strategic Plan, which we have.
So we didn't have a formal presentation, and I'm not asking the RTA to come up and do one, but we just wanted to make this committee aware, since you are the Transit Advisory Committee for the county, that our Regional Transportation Authority they put together a draft strategic plan for the region. And this one is a little different than previous strategic plans in that it is really focused on the challenges that this region faces financially going forward after the COVID relief dollars dry up, which is going to be happening in 26, I think, is when some of the dollars start drying up. There's about a $730 million annual budget deficit for the region. Almost $1 billion that the region needs to either cut from our transit agencies or increase revenue to accommodate that. And this plan does a really good job kind of defining the issue, talking about some ways that they could close that gap. I think it's a good read, and the RTA board is set to approve it later this month, I think on the 13th or something, 16th. So for those that don't remember, former Mayor Sager is our RTA board director representing McHenry County. He also serves on the county's transportation committee. So if you do have comments about this plan or concerns or questions, he would be a good resource to reach out to. But I would encourage you all to make yourselves familiar with what's in the document, because there are a lot of changes that are to be coming. I mean, there's talk in here about raising the RTA sales tax. There's talk about increasing the motor fuel tax to pay for transit. There's talk about increased tolling, vehicle miles traveled fees. There's a plethora of things that the region's looking at to help fill this budget gap. And it's not just a little bit of money. $730 million per year is a substantial amount of money the region needs to come up with. So take a read if you get a chance. And that's all.
Okay.
Do we have we looked at other areas? I mean, is somebody else, I assume everybody's looking at this.
Every region across the country is dealing with the same issue, and everybody is looking into it right now. What are they going to do? Are they going to cut service? Are they going to increase revenues? And I think everybody will kind of come down differently on that question, and we'll have a unique response here in this region. But I think the last thing we as a body and as the county want to see is service cuts, both on the PACE side and on the Metra side. But that is a reality. We could be faced in a couple of years with Metra and PACE looking to cut service if we don't raise the revenue that's necessary. So I don't want this committee to be blindsided if in a couple of years there's a proposal to get rid of the Harvard Metro station, or get rid of the McHenry Spur, or to get rid of the 550. But that is a reality of the situation we're dealing with as a region.
Under the CMAP regional plan, CMAP regional plan?
Same thing, this is a separate parallel plan that just kicked off in January. So the RTA's completed their plan, but the CMAP, which is our regional metropolitan planning organization, they are doing a similar plan that was required by state statute to look at the financial viability of transit going forward. And so they're gonna come with some recommendations by the end of this year on how to fill that $700 million funding gap. And again, I wanted this committee to be aware that there's these two plans out there, and if you want to provide feedback, comments, there are opportunities to do that. You can go on CMAP's website, I think they have a comment form on there, or ways you can get involved. And you know, the county does have representation on CMAP, so ultimately this plan will be approved by the county, or by a representative of the county. And so we would love input, as you guys have any, on how we should be thinking about this issue going forward.
Okay, thank you. I believe at the beginning of the meeting, because it was, the location wasn't clear, we were gonna have public comment again, if anyone is. Okay, if not, I think we've covered everything, right? So the next meeting is May 4th, it's also 2 p.m. See you there. And do we need a motion to adjourn, or can I get a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
I'll second.
And a second? All in favor?
All right.
Thank you.